Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Resident Rulebreakers. I'm Kayla,
And I'm Cleo.
and today's podcast is about episode 110 called Haunted. It's directed by David Crabtree, which you might recognize from episodes like the Valentine's Day episode from season 2. He does a lot of holiday-themed episodes. He's even joked about that.
He was actually supposed to direct 321. The episode that did air from season 3. I remember I had reposted one of his pictures, and it's actually still up on his Instagram, of him posting a cover of the script or whatever of season 3, episode 21, and that was just before they shut down production. So yeah, he was supposed to direct the next episode.
Well, I wonder if he got the premiere because it was supposed to be his episode. Because I know they had to change some stuff, but it was they were going to keep it somewhat similar, weren't they?
Most of it, yeah. So maybe, but yeah, he little known fact, David Crabtree was supposed to direct episode 321.
And it's actually the episode was written by Andrew Chapman, who's now one of the show's showrunners.
Yeah.
So there's that. Before we jump into this podcast, we want to send condolences to Miss Amy, who lost her husband last Sunday. Michael, who was the cinematographer on many movies that you may know about, including Taxi Driver, which is how they met. So
and he was Spielberg's director of photography for that movie. Steven Spielberg actually wrote a wonderful article about Michael Chapman and how, like, Michael Chapman was totally involved in the set. He had like Steven was pretty much gave him this never done before task of, like, making the shark look scary and jumping on the boat and everything, all these iconic scenes and stuff like that. And Steven called him a genius, and that's high praise from Steven Spielberg.
Yes. So now you know what his work was, but he was Amy's husband, and so our condolences to you, Amy. And
it's their kids.
Yeah,
I think they have like a daughter at least. I know Miss Amy has posted pictures of her daughter. I'm not sure, and a son. But yeah.
So to you and your family, I can listen because I get what you're going through, Amy. I haven't lost a spouse, but I did lose a family member this week. My dad's second oldest brother passed away this past Sunday night, just as we were prepping the podcast to go out to be released. I found out that he had passed away from a heart attack. So it's been a rough week for me. But a lot of people are probably going to be shocked hearing the fact that we actually recorded a whole podcast, and especially on the episode we recorded it on. But I promised you a podcast, and I keep my promises. I made you a promise, and I'm keeping it. So it's just...
Yeah, I wanted to take a break. Kayla was like, no, I got it. We're good.
Yeah. But we are taking a break for the next 2 weeks to deal with... it was already pre-planned, but I'm glad that it's here because I'm emotionally and physically exhausted at this point, and I'm very glad to have this. Plus, I'm moving next weekend, so
yeah, nobody's gotten back to us about international captions, so I don't know if that's a good thing. But yeah, again, if you guys need international captions, Spanish, French. I think there's also Chinese and Japanese or whatever. Again, there is no guarantee that these captions are going to be 100% perfect because we don't know the languages, so it might be a screw up altogether. But again, if you guys, we are gonna only allow it if you're like an admin or an owner of an Instagram page or whatever. It's because or Instagram or Facebook, mostly because individually it would just be too much of a hassle or whatever. But yeah, please let us know. Contact us through either Instagram, Facebook, even email or whatever. So we will get it to you so you can share it to your followers. The ones we will be releasing again will probably be Amy, Malcolm, and Bruce. We will try to release the others as well, the other interviews as well.
Like Steven, Radek, Jessica.
Yeah, Marquis. But again, the top 3 that we want to re-release are Amy and Bruce and Malcolm, and if we have a chance, we will do the others as well because they all have a lot to say and stuff. But yeah.
So, like I mentioned already, this particular podcast has a lot of mentions of death in it between the lady, Dr. Jacoby, who was Conrad's mentor, seeing her dead ghosts of her dead patients, to them dealing with Lily's death. It just has some mentions of a lot of that. It was hard. It was hard to watch.
Yeah. I mean, Dr. Jacoby was a neurosurgeon, and little known, and she was haunted by patients that she feels were bad outcomes, died in her arms, whatever. Something that I don't talk about a lot is that my last neurosurgery, which was 10 years ago, gave me complications as well, lasting complications as well. I try not to think about it because it leads me to tears, but I was able to walk. I used to be able to walk. I used to be able to climb Mount Diamond Head. I used to be able to do. I was a very active person. I'd be able to go up and down stairs. I wouldn't be able to run, but I used to be able to do a lot of these things with pretty active life despite my disability. But pretty soon after my last back surgery, I had started developing weaknesses in my legs. I had started getting constant pain, and it wasn't going away. And I have very high pain tolerance, so just the fact that I was screaming at the top of my lungs in pain was worrisome. And my mom would have to drive me to the emergency room almost every week trying to figure out what's wrong with me and all these things. So this hit me even more because from a personal level, because I'm one of those people that had complications from a neurosurgery. My neurosurgeon, what happened in the operating room is still a mystery to me. Nobody will tell me. But anyway, I'm not one of the dead patients, obviously, but it still affected me. And this the first time I watched it, I literally was I don't want to watch this. You know what I mean? When it first aired out.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll admit, with all the circumstances that have surrounded this week, it has become a difficult episode to watch, no matter what. It's difficult already to have all this thrown. It's difficult to watch in the circumstances I watched it in.
Yeah. We both are not having a good week. No. If we can just skip this one again.
But yeah, hopefully things will get better.
I
'Cause I
think
will
it's a
be.
coincidence that we picked this episode on the week where on this week. We picked this episode like a month ago. So
Yeah, and it really was picked because it was the next one in order. So
yeah,
it was it was the biggest coincidence of all time. This was the case. But like obviously, they're dealing with Lily dying in the previous episode.
yeah.
On on Conrad's watch. I mean, he was there doing chest compressions, and that scene still rips my heart out. Like Matt just plays it to the.
Watching the previously on The Resident, I realized that was Bradley who did the time of death.
Yeah, it was.
Didn't know that.
But yeah, that Conrad at the beginning of the episode's running because a lot of people do physical exercise to try to get their minds off of whatever is bothering them, and that's what Conrad was doing. It helps tire them out enough to where they can sleep or whatever.
Yeah, he was running.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy hit him on a bike. Conrad tumbled or whatever, and then like he like literally walked into that ER looking like a car hit him instead of a bike.
I know. But like, because like everybody's going, Conrad, you need to get help with your ankle, and it's gonna get worse if you don't if you keep walking on it, blah blah blah. Irving was like, let me treat that for you, and then Devin kept pushing him like, you need to get that treated. And I think Nick said the same thing, like, you need to let me treat your ankle, whatever. It took to the end of the episode for Nick to take his shoe off and realize how bad it got, and for her to wrap it and ice it and give him pain. Like, he shot it up with cortisone and everything just to pull through his shift. Conrad's a very stubborn man, as you aware.
Very. I should know, but is it like this episode, or is it like in a later episode in like season 2 or something that Matt actually got hurt?
Matt actually got hurt in a season 2 episode, I think. Because it's the episode where he smashes the glass.
To like break into the lab or whatever.
Yeah. Anyway, Matt actually did hurt his ankle on set from running, trying to film the running scene. I have to say though, for a guy that's apparently had 2 knee surgeries, he runs pretty well.
Matt actually had 2 surgeries?
No, not Matt. The character Conrad had 2 knee surgeries.
Like, what the hell?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm a pretty big follower of Matt Zuckery, and I don't know that. No, the character Conrad, Devin mentions in the episode that Conrad has had 2 knee surgeries previously. Yeah. I'm guessing from stuff that he dealt with in the war.
No,
military stuff. And but for a guy that's had 2 knee surgeries, he certainly runs pretty well. So but yeah, this episode, we're going to Conic in a minute, but this episode brings development for them. They are both grieving Lily really hard, and they're talking about it, trying to comfort each other, and it brings them together, and they end up sleeping together at the end of the episode. So
yeah,
it brings the start of what we now know as a Conic to life.
But then like Lily comes to haunt
Conrad as a ghost. Yeah,
Conrad.
So yeah, he's seeing her ghost. This is like his first I know he has lost other patients, but Lily was, because he feels guilt because he didn't listen to Nick when she said something's wrong. And what really gets me is Lane Hunter is here pushing for an autopsy, and I'm sitting here going, you told this girl she had cancer when she doesn't. You're defrauding her, and you want them to do an autopsy. They're gonna find that she didn't have cancer. They're gonna prove that with the autopsy.
She has like a big ego. She really does.
Like, I was just like, and then she's in there manipulating Belle at the end and everything, saying, you need to be the CEO and everything. We'll get to that. I'm just like, this woman it just made me gross. And they're in there kissing, and I'm like, I turned my head. That was probably the one scene I had to turn my head with.
Oh my god, that was funny.
It's gross. But yeah. But then, of course, part of this episode is a lady named Dr. Eileen Jacoby, who was played by an actress a lot of us probably will recognize.
Soap opera legend. Any What Life to Live fans. Victoria Lord made her presence known on The Resident, played by Erica Slezak.
Yes. And Erica Slezak played Dr. Jacoby, but she's a neurosurgeon, as we've mentioned, and she's seeing ghosts of her patients that she couldn't save, essentially. And they find out she had a brain bleed in her frontal lobe.
Yeah.
So they ended up fixing that, like, off camera, apparently. But, like, Mina's, like, excited to meet her because she's the reason Mina became a surgeon to begin with.
She's a fangirl.
Yeah. Not quite a girl crush, but definitely a fangirl. So yeah, Mina was like, Conrad, can I meet her? Conrad, can I meet her? But yeah, and then she showed her that, she balanced whatever that machine was, and yeah, they had a good moment, her and Mina. But Conrad ended up helping his mentor, and she's she obviously apparently is recovered. Huh?
She helps him too.
Yeah, she helps him too. Yeah. But they have a conversation about like death and stuff, and she's like, "You've lost someone recently, and yeah, he did."
Did we ever hear what's the time frame between this episode and
it's the next day. Nick goes in the room early in the beginning of the episode and goes, I was here last night before I left. She'd worked a double shift and left.
Yep.
Between that and the next morning, Lily was gone. So there's your time frame. Nick actually mentioned it at the beginning of the episode because Lily's name was still on the door. So, and then obviously Belle has a very rich VIP patient.
Yeah. Who's very superstitious. A Chinese billionaire or something?
Yes, second richest man in China.
But yeah, he came to Chastain. He did not. The room was all wrong because I guess the numbers were not lucky in China. So Nick was like, what's the lucky number in China? And so they changed the room to 3333 because 3 is a number for this, the Chinese number for life, I guess. I thought it was 8. I was wrong. Because I remember when the Beijing Olympics happened in 2008, they started the Olympics on 888 because that was supposed to be the lucky number in China, but I guess I was wrong. Anyway, his name was Zima. The actor who plays him is Zima. He's like a very he's a big actor in China as well as here in the United States. His most recent project, if you guys have watched it, is Mulan. He played Mulan's father. Stuff. So, and there's articles now in, if you Google his name, he's like now known as the Chinese dad, everyone's Chinese dad or whatever. But anyway, I wanted to mention this about the actor. A couple of months ago, as most of you know, we're in the middle of a coronavirus pandemic. And a lot of Asian Americans, this is going to get me emotional because I'm Asian American. Yes. Anyway, have faced discrimination, have faced violence against them. You mean, last month or a couple of months ago, they had a Chinese grandmother set on fire in New York. So anyway, back in March, Zima, he participated in a project that showed a lot of Asian Americans who were trying to discourage people from attacking them. Like, this isn't my fault. This virus isn't my fault. And he shared a story where he was like, yeah, I was attacked. He was like going to the grocery store or something. He went out the parking lot and this dude in a car yelled at him like, go back to China, we don't want you here, or whatever. And like literally pushed him, and got out the car and pushed him to the ground. And like sadly, since this pandemic, since everybody's blaming the Chinese, there have been a lot of documented cases of Asians, Asian Americans, etc., who have been attacked, and Mr. Zima was one of them and stuff like that. So, and considering most Americans can't tell whether you're Chinese or Korean or Filipino like myself, it's not discriminative. It's not just on the Chinese people. I mean, Mr. Zima is from Hong Kong. So, yeah, it's like, it's a scary time today.
But yeah, Zima played the businessman, and anyway, with Belle, this was Belle's plot line pretty much. That was his patient brought in by Claire. She was like, I want you to do it, you're the face of the hospital, blah blah blah. But Belle goes to his friend that he has, and his friend figured out that he's like, because Belle kept saying, my friend has a tumor, my golf buddy has a tumor, whatever, and he's trying to get advice from to figure out how to cover it up. Well, his friend obviously figured out that he's the guy with the tumor.
Yeah.
And he tells him that it's stress-induced and take Xanax. Maybe Xanax is why Belle's tumor disappeared, because apparently his hand was pretty steady for the rest of the episode after that.
Yeah. Well, what did he do exactly? He cut off a vein or something? What did he do?
There was some type of vein when he took the tumor out of the liver. He didn't cauterize something, and he started the patient bled out internally, and that's when Jude and Mina had to step in to stop the bleeding, and that's when Jude found the mass in his colon as well. And that's when Belle stepped back in and said, this is my patient, blah blah blah, and Jude and Belle had that argument, and it ended up where Jude got fired for yelling at Belle. So, and we're going to talk about Jude's last episode in a moment, but that story that Jude tells, I'm guessing it's Devin. I think it's Devin. Where he says, this doctor, he hadn't done the surgery since his residency and ended up killing a patient because he had too much of an ego and didn't want to admit to it. He never hadn't admitted to it, blah, 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 blah. That's actually true and actually did happen. But anyway, Jude admits his mistakes, unlike Belle, who took credit for the whole surgery and ended up getting a $10,000 watch because of it.
Isn't that against the law?
It is. It's absolutely 100% against the law for doctors to take all these type of gifts from patients. Yes. But Claire apparently has no clue about Belle's dad reputation, which is apparently he's keeping it under wraps from the CEO. But which makes no sense because the whole staff knows about it. But, and I love Jessica was in this episode. And she's like, well, the patient survived. And Claire just looks at her like, what? What is that supposed to mean?
Which makes me wonder, like, did Jess know that he missed a vein or whatever?
I think she knew. And, of course, I mean, it was almost immediate by the time he got into the hospital room and woke up that he started bleeding internally. Yeah. The thing, like, the way that I had forgotten how they had written Jude out. Like, I knew that there was some type of military thing, but at least that's what I thought I remembered. But it's not really the case. He actually mentions to Conrad that he's thinking about going to doing Doctors Without Borders, which I have a crazy story. My father did a mission trip with them. I don't know, about 5-10 years ago. I was still in college at the time, and here's video. My dad took a lot of video of that trip. There's a video that they used for publicity of that trip in Honduras. So I thought it was pretty cool to mention. They did things like dental work and basic medical care and stuff like glasses, stuff like that.
Your dad's a doctor?
No, but my dad went with them as a missionary. But yeah, but Jude, this was Jude's last episode. Warren was written out because he went to go do the neighborhood or whatever.
Yeah.
Of course, we know that show didn't last, but that was why he was written out of The Resident.
Yeah, he was only on. It was only on for like 10 episodes.
Yeah, and but the last line that Conrad and Jude say to each other is, "Be safe, brother." I really would love to, like, I know Jude can't practice at Chastain, but I would love to see him come back. Conrad and Nick's wedding.
Conic wedding.
Yeah, the conic wedding. Just, because I think he had a lot of push and the way the Conrad and Nick got getting together because they were dealing with a lot of grief, but Jude actually talked to Conrad prior to leaving about Nick, and he says that you need to talk to Nick. You need to know that she's hurting pretty bad, and I think y'all can get through this together. So Jude was also a pusher in the fact of Conrad might have to get Conrad to talk to her. So in a way, he was a help to push the relationship back together. So thank you, Jude.
Yeah.
But my least favorite part of the episode is the Hunter and Belle stuff. I hated it. I was just grossed out. I always thought it was disgusting. And she's trying to push him into pushing out, which we know actually happened, pushing out Claire and becoming the CEO because he's a doctor apparently. But yeah, so there's the ploy of Belle becoming CEO starts with Lane Hunter and her mischievous, manipulative ways right here in this episode. And then of course we have Conic, which the Conic scene at the end, when I first watched it, I was really frustrated and sad and really, really sad about Lily passing, but I was also really excited to see progression on Conrad and Nick, because you're sitting there going, what, this, they need to, be together. It's about time. 10 episodes in and you're really you can tell that they care about each other truly. And the passing of Lily and Conrad's conversation with Jude really pushed, and then him getting injured really pushed everything to where she ended up doctoring his foot and then them sleeping together. So Because
well, I mean, like, let's talk about Devon and Conrad. Devon, like, I know we talked about him as a patient doctor in this episode, but I'm talking about like when Devon went up to Conrad, it was like, I believed her, you know, you're the one who questioned her, and it was like
that may have also have some push on him feeling a lot more regret because he didn't believe Nick. But Devin goes, he does say, I was a better doctor to Lily in terms of this because I believed that Nick was telling the truth about Lane Hunter. That's just something you don't say to your superior, you know, because in this case, Conrad is Devin's superior, and technically is his boss, I would say. So I just, yeah, Devin. I mean, in this case, he's right, but you just don't say it. I mean, he was but you're dealing with a lot of grief and losing a patient like that. But you know, for Nick, like, there's a scene in the beginning of the episode where she walks in and she's like, "Where's Lily? What happened to Lily?" And she had no, like, you know, it was that fast. And she's like, she was so happy, and because she had the puppy and everything. So that fast, and really can be that fast. So what I will say, especially with all my experiences that I've lived through this week, treasure the people around you. Talk to them, love them, hold on to them.
Yep.
And you never know when it might be your last moment with them.
Don't say I love you.
Yeah.
Don't. Yeah, especially nowadays with the pandemic and stuff like that, you never know. And so, like, don't end a conversation without saying those words, because the last thing you want to do is have it's not.
It's to feel regret for the rest of your life on how you treated someone the last time they talked to you.
Yeah, leave nothing unsaid.
Exactly. So if you have that thought in your head, oh, I should call this person, do it.
Do it.
That's all I have to say about that. So before we leave, we have some stuff we just need to mention. There will be no podcast for the next 2 weeks. We've already mentioned that. We just want to remind you that you won't be seeing anything, like what you'll be seeing on social media won't be new episodes. What you'll be seeing are snippets of old podcasts that have closed captions on them in place, because we need this 2-week hiatus to deal with all this emotional stuff, to deal with the physical exhaustion also. And also I have to move next weekend. But anyway, so there's that as well. I'm moving into my own place. So the next time you see a video podcast, which probably won't be happening anytime soon, because from what we know from people who are in the know with the resident, they should go back to filming on the second week of October.
Yep.
That's just a tentative date, but that's what we've been told. So we're going to stick to that. If they're filming by, say, next Monday, then, you know, we won't get to talk to any cast members or anybody else involved in the show for quite some time. So, but we will, if there's BTS photos from sets and stuff like that, promise you, the best place for you to go is Camille's Instagram or the Facebook group. They will be posted in both places.
I need to, like, get back to posting stuff. I haven't posted a lot of things.
So we're going to do a rundown of all the social media stuff and everything. That way you know where to go, whatever. First off, we do, I just want to say, mention the Patreon account one more time. We don't make money off of this podcast, guys. Any money money that I make from my job. you know, any money that I have comes from my full-time job, and that's what's being used to pay all my bills. So the podcast is not that. So, but the Patreon account is set up to help fund the podcast. So we're not
really have one patron.
One patron right now. The BTS stuff will be posted once everything calms down just a little bit and I'm able to work on it and stuff. So I promise it's coming. It's just everything's been so crazy and insane that I really, truly have been too exhausted and too tired to even think about doing anything BTS-wise. But it will come. But there's also t-shirts and posters and coffee mugs and stickers and stuff like that if you go into higher amounts that you give us. And all the money that comes into the Patreon account will go back into the podcast. So we'll go to things like hosting and stuff like that. So it's because it's expensive. We would prefer, if you want to help us keep this growing, to be able to fund it in a different form. That's all I have to say about it. Put it like that. So you can go to patreon.com/The Resident Podcast and check out the different tiers. And once you get enough money on there, we can get the products ourselves. So there's that too. I mentioned the Facebook page. We have a Facebook page and a Facebook group. The Facebook group is where a lot of, once they go back to taping, a lot of the BTS will be posted, probably by Camille, from set and stuff. We might get some stuff from people who are involved in the show as well in there. But yeah, that's a good place to go. It's the Resident Fox Fans. And you can just go there and talk to us and stuff. And believe me, when Fox gives a premiere date, believe me, I get alerts on these press releases. We will know when Fox announces this, like that.
Yep.
So you will know when we know. Let's just put it like that. And being in the Facebook group is a good way of finding out information. So don't silence it. Don't do that, because this is a pivotal couple of weeks where we're going to get information, I think. So there's that. Then there's the Facebook page, which is the Resident Rulebreakers podcast, and that page it's obviously a lot of our posts and stuff that come from our Instagram page, and our links to all the podcasts and everything are going to be there. We might even post some BTS there as well. Just depends on everything that happens in the next couple weeks. Just stay tuned. Anyway, the Instagram, obviously, the Resident Podcast, where that's where I know we've been silent, but again, this has been a very rough week. So please deal with us. Then there's
the next couple of weeks it will be very active, because that's where we post all of our caption stuff. So
yep, but also because they are planning on going back to taping, like we said, go to Camille's Instagram, the Resident Fox Fans, because that's really, she gets BTS from set, and that's where if you really want that information, that's where you need to be following as well. My Instagram is very personal. It's KB Country 37. I like I said, I'm moving this week, so you might get some. Then our Twitter, which is at Resident Podcast, the forgotten of the social medias, but please go there as well. We do add links to the new podcasts and stuff like that, and I'm pretty sure Camille will be posting the videos and stuff over there as well.
Yep.
So, and then, of course, how to listen. Podbean, which is our host now, not SoundCloud. We are no longer hosted on SoundCloud. We are hosted on Podbean.
Yeah.
And it provides better statistics for us to be able to know who's listening, how many listeners, where you're listening from, stuff like that. It lets me know stuff like that. And then, of course, the other platforms with like iHeartRadio, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Play. Then, of course, we have our YouTube channel, which has the audio only stuff. The videos say Podbean because they actually are made by Podbean and given to us with the audio only file in it. So there's that. So you can also listen on the YouTube channel, which also gives us quite a bit of analytics. I'm really pleased with how their stuff's done. And so I know it's a lot of information, but we have to get it out. So the next podcast is actually going to be in 2 weeks.
Well, 3 weeks.
3 weeks, technically. Technically, it's going to be 3 weeks away, and it's going to be about nightmares, which is episode 206. It's part 1 of our Halloween special. Nightmares is the first Halloween episode they did with The Resident, and it was directed by David Crabtree. I thought so. He's the holiday guy, as he says. He did Halloween and Valentine's Day, I think. So, yeah, David directed 2-6 as well. And it's the episode with the girl that Conrad has. Yeah, he has to prevent her from jumping off the roof and everything. She runs through the plate glass door and she's seeing things. Yeah. And then there's the Halloween party and Irving in his crazy outfits, and Nick's sister is in this one. Sorry. Jessie. It starts hinting at her drug addiction being back. So this is it's a good episode. I really loved Nightmares. So in 3 weeks, guys, please give us that time to rest, recuperate, deal with personal things, and we'll be back just in time for Halloween. Okay?
Yep.
And then, of course, the other episode that we chose for our Halloween special, which is the only other Halloween-themed episode of the Resident Belief System, which is 304.
Yeah. Wonder how they're gonna do this, like, next.
They can't obviously do these holiday stuff.
I know they can't. But will they have, like, Conic Wedding be Christmas themed or something? Well, they're doing COVID-19 as a flashback, right? So they can still do some kind of.
I don't really want the wedding to be in a flashback. I want it to be.
I know. Neither do I. But I don't think it's gonna be during the season premiere.
No, like Amy said, it was supposed to be like 4 or 5 episodes in. So.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens because when Camille gets BTS, a lot of times she'll often get spoilers as well. So we get a lot of information.
That's how I knew that David Crabtree was supposed to direct episode 321.
Yeah, we don't only get, like, usually we get the name of the director, we get the name of the writers, we get the name of the episode, which we can go and speculate. And then usually, like, a couple weeks prior to the episode, we'll get a press release from Fox with the rundown or whatever, and then it gives a lot of the guest actors' names and stuff like that. But they also get guys' photos, and that'll probably be like December.
Yeah, but hopefully, everyone keeps asking when is it going to be released? When's season 4 going to happen? Well,
we're still being told January at this point.
Yeah. But if they don't start filming soon, it's gonna be pushed back even further than January, because they would need time to do production, and post-production.
Just be patient with them about filming and the show coming back. But believe me, when Fox sets dates and stuff, and we have information about episodes, the Facebook group and Camille's Instagram are the 2 best places to get that information, hands down. So 3 weeks from now, stay tuned. We'll be doing Nightmares, episode 206. So until then, I'm Kayla.
I'm Camille.
Bye, guys, and
Bye.
happy hiatus.